My son told me, "Pack your bags. Mom, you're going to Sunset Meadows." I smiled and agreed. But what he didn't know was that I had already prepared for this moment. 20 years ago. Welcome to Stories of Auntie Grace. Before we begin, drop a comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you. Now, settle in for a story about justice, patience, and the love that never gives up. My name is Doris Chamberlain, and I'm 72 years old. For the past 30 years, I taught English literature at Lincoln High School. And if there's one thing I learned from decades of reading great novels, it's this. The best plot twists are set up long before anyone sees them coming. But I never thought I'd have to apply that lesson to my own life. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. I was in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made David's lunches every morning for 18 years. The same kitchen where I'd taught him to bake his first apple pie when he was 7 when I heard his car pull into the driveway. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to open the door. But before I could reach it, the door swung open, and there stood my son David, 48 years old, 6 feet tall, dressed in one of those expensive suits that real estate agents wear when they're trying to impress million-dollar clients. And behind him, clicking into my house on her designer heels, was Monica Graves Chamberlain, my daughter-in-law of 5 years, corporate lawyer, power dresser, and the kind of woman who smiles with her mouth but never with her eyes. "Mom," David said, and his voice had that false brightness people use when they're about to deliver bad news. "Monica and I need to talk to you about something important." I felt a chill run down my spine. Not the kind of chill you get from cold weather. The kind you get when you know something terrible is about to happen, but you don't know what yet. "Of course, honey," I said, forcing a smile. "Come sit down. I just made coffee." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where David had done his homework, where we'd celebrated his acceptance to college, where his father had sat before the cancer took him 8 years ago. Monica didn't touch her coffee. She never did. "Coffee stains teeth," she'd told me once, as if my offer of hospitality was an attack on her perfect white smile. David took a sip, then set down his mug carefully. "Too carefully. The way you handle explosives, Mom." He began again. "Monica and I have been talking, and, well, we're worried about you." I blinked. "Worried? About what?" Monica leaned forward, her perfectly manicured hands folded on my table. "Doris, you're 72 years old. You live alone in this big house. What if you fall? What if you have a medical emergency and no one's here to help?" "I'm perfectly healthy," I said slowly. "My doctor says I have the blood pressure of a woman 20 years younger." "For now," Monica said, and her smile was like a blade wrapped in silk. "But things can change so quickly at your age. David and I just want you to be safe." David nodded. "We've been looking at options, Mom, and we found a wonderful place. Sunset Meadows Retirement Community. It's only 20 minutes from our house. They have activities, medical staff on site, chef-prepared meals." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "You want me to move to a nursing home?" "An assisted living facility," Monica corrected, as if the euphemism made it better. "It's really lovely, Doris. We took a tour last week." "You'd have your own apartment last week?" I interrupted. "You've already been looking at places?" Without even talking to me first, David reached across the table and patted my hand. It was the kind of pat you give a child who doesn't understand something. "We wanted to have all the information before we brought it to you, Mom. We didn't want to worry you unnecessarily. The deposit's already paid," Monica added brightly. "They had a beautiful corner unit available, but it won't last long. These places fill up fast." I pulled my hand away from David's. "You paid a deposit? On a place for me to live? Without asking me?" "Mom, please don't be difficult about this," David said, and now there was an edge in his voice. "We're doing this for your own good." But what he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I'd been preparing for exactly this moment for 20 years. Let me back up. Let me tell you how we got here. Because the story doesn't start with David and Monica and their paid deposit. It starts 3 decades ago, with a wise man and a conversation that would change everything. It was 1995. My husband Richard had just died. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. David was 18, about to start college, and I was 42 years old, a widow trying to figure out how to keep going. Richard had been a CPA, a careful, methodical man who planned for everything. He left me the house, paid off. He left me his life insurance, $250,000. And he left me the name of his lawyer, a man named Thaddeus Sterling. If you ever need help. Doris, Richard had whispered in his hospital bed, his hand thin and cold in mine. Call Thad. He's more than a lawyer. He's a friend. And he understands. He understands how families can turn. At the time, I didn't understand what Richard meant. Turn? Our family was fine. David was a good boy. We were close. But Richard had seen something I hadn't. Something in David's eyes when we talked about the inheritance. A calculation. A measuring. 6 months after the funeral, I met with Thaddeus Sterling in his office downtown. He was in his 50s then, with iron gray hair and eyes that seemed to see straight through people's masks. Mrs. Chamberlain, he said, pouring me tea from a silver service, your husband was one of the wisest men I ever knew. And before he died, he asked me to give you some advice. May I speak frankly? Please. I said, your son is about to inherit a house and $250,000. That's a lot of money for an 18-year-old. Richard was worried not that David was a bad person, but that money can change people, and that you might need protection someday. I laughed. It seemed absurd. David would never hurt me, Mr. Sterling. I hope you're right, he said gently, but Richard asked me to suggest something, just in case. A protective trust, he explained it to me carefully. I would create an irrevocable trust, putting the house and most of my assets into it. Legally, I wouldn't own them anymore, the trust would, but I would be the lifetime beneficiary, meaning I could live in the house and use the assets as long as I lived. And I would name the ultimate beneficiary who would inherit everything when I died. Here's the clever part, Thad said. You can name David as a remainder beneficiary, but with conditions. For instance, you could specify that he only inherits if he provides you with proper care and respect. If he tries to force you into a facility, or manipulate you, or take advantage of you in any way, the trust can redirect to someone else. Like who? A charity, a friend, anyone you choose. The point is, it protects you. If David is good to you, he inherits everything as you intended. But if he's not, well, the trust ensures he gets nothing. I thought about it for a long time. It felt like a betrayal. Planning for my own son to betray me. But I kept hearing Richard's voice. He understands how families can turn. So I did it. I set up the trust, put the house in it, put the life insurance money in it, carefully invested, named David as the primary remainder beneficiary, but with conditions, and named Tyler, David's son, my grandson who was just born that year, as the alternate beneficiary if David violated the terms. One more thing, Thad said. Don't tell David about this. Let him think the house is still in your name. Let him think you have a simple will leaving everything to him. That way, if he does try to take advantage of you, you'll know his true character. And then Thad said something I'll never forget. The best defense is prepared in silence. Mrs. Chamberlain, predators only strike when they think their prey is weak. For 20 years, I kept that trust secret. And for 20 years, I watched David. I watched him grow from a college student to a man. I watched him marry his first wife, sweet Jennifer, who died in a car accident when Tyler was only 10. I watched him drown his grief in work, building his real estate empire. And then, 5 years ago, I watched him marry Monica. That's when things started to change. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened that day in my kitchen when they told me about Sunset Meadows. I sat there, looking at my son and his wife, and I made a decision. I would let this play out. I would see how far they were willing to go. Okay, I said quietly. David blinked. Okay, if you really think it's best for me, I said, I'll trust your judgment. You're my son. You want what's best for me. Relief flooded David's face. Monica smiled, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not relief. Triumph. Oh, Mom, David said, standing up to hug me. Thank you for understanding. You'll be so much happier there. And we'll visit all the time. When do I move? I asked. Well, Monica said, pulling out her phone. The room is available starting next week. I know that's fast, but like I said, these places fill up next week is fine. I said. David hugged me again. We'll help you pack, Mom. Don't worry about a thing. They left an hour later, promising to come back over the weekend with boxes. I stood at the window and watched David's Mercedes pull out of the driveway. Then I went to my bedroom, opened my nightstand drawer, and pulled out a business card I'd kept there for 20 years. Thaddeus Sterling, attorney at law. We called the number. A secretary answered, then put me through. Mrs. Chamberlain. Thad's voice came through, older now but still strong. It's been a long time. Are you calling about the trust? Yes, I said. I think it's time. Tell me what's happened. I told him about David and Monica's visit, about Sunset Meadows, about how they'd made all the decisions without consulting me, paid the deposit without my knowledge. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, they're moving faster than I expected. Do you want to stop them? Not yet, I said. I need to know how far they'll go, what they're really planning, Doris. That could be dangerous, I know, but I need to see their true faces. All of them. Thad sighed. All right, but I'm putting protections in place starting today, and I'm going to need you to do something for me. What? Record everything, every conversation. Get yourself a small digital recorder and keep it on you. And most importantly, don't sign anything they give you. Nothing. Not a medical form, not a power of attorney, nothing. Do you understand? I understand. One more thing. Does Tyler know about any of this? Tyler, my grandson, 19 years old, home from college for spring break. No, I said. I don't want to put him in the middle. You might not have a choice, Thad said gently. He's named in the trust, Doris, as the alternate beneficiary. If David violates the conditions, everything goes to Tyler. I closed my eyes. Tyler, the boy I'd raised as much as his own father had, especially after Jennifer died. The boy who called me every Sunday from college, who brought me flowers on my birthday, who sat with me in comfortable silence reading books while his father was always too busy. I'll tell him, I said, when the time is right. That evening, Tyler came to visit. He had his own key. I'd given it to him when he turned 16. He let himself in and found me in the living room, surrounded by photo albums. Gran, he said, his voice concerned. You okay? Dad said you're moving to Sunset Meadows? I looked up at my grandson. He had his mother Jennifer's gentle eyes, his grandfather Richard's strong jaw, and something else, something neither David nor Monica had. Integrity. Sit down, Tyler, I said. There's something I need to tell you. And I told him everything. About the trust. About Thad Sterling. About my suspicions that David and Monica weren't doing this for my benefit, but for their own. Tyler listened, his face growing paler with each revelation. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Gran, I don't want the house. I don't want any of it. I just want you to be safe. I reached over and squeezed his hand. I know, sweetheart. But the trust isn't really about you inheriting. It's about keeping your father honest. If he knows there are consequences for treating me badly, maybe he'll do the right thing. Do you really think Dad would hurt you? For money? I thought about that carefully before answering. I don't think your father is a bad person, Tyler. But Monica. Monica is someone who sees people as assets and liabilities. And I'm afraid she's teaching your father to see me the same way. Tyler stood up, pacing the room. This is insane. What can I do? How can I help? Just watch, I said. Keep your eyes open. If you see or hear anything at all that concerns you, document it. And don't let on that you know about the trust. Tyler nodded grimly. I've got a good recording app on my phone. I'll keep it on whenever I'm around them. And that's when our quiet investigation began. But neither Tyler nor I could have imagined what we were about to discover. The following Saturday, David and Monica showed up with a U-Haul truck and more boxes than I'd ever need. Monica had her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, wearing yoga pants and a designer sweatshirt, her version of helping clothes. Okay, Doris, she said, walking through my house with a clipboard like a general surveying a battlefield. We need to be smart about this. Sunset Meadows apartments are much smaller than this house. You're going to have to let go of most of your furniture. Let go of, I started. I've already arranged for an estate sale company to come next week. Monica continued, making notes. They'll handle everything. Furniture, kitchen items, books, clothes you don't need anymore. It's much easier this way. You won't have to deal with the stress of sorting through everything. David appeared from the basement, carrying a box of Richard's old tax files. Mom, you don't need any of this stuff anymore, right? I'm just going to throw it out. Wait, I said quickly. Those are your father's papers. I'd like to keep them. Monica laughed. Doris, they're 30-year-old tax returns. What could you possibly need them for? What I needed them for was evidence of the trust. Those boxes contain the original paperwork from 1995, carefully filed away by my meticulous husband. Sentimental value, I said firmly. I'll keep them. Monica and David exchanged a look. The kind of look that said, she's being difficult, but they didn't push it. Not yet. Over the next few hours, I watched them pack up my life. Monica made executive decisions about what I could keep. You'll only need 3 outfits. Really, they do laundry twice a week at Sunset Meadows, and what would be sold, this China service is beautiful. Doris, but when will you ever use it in the facility? David, for his part, kept disappearing into different rooms. At one point, I found him in my bedroom, going through my jewelry box. Oh, Mom, he said, not looking guilty at all. I was just making sure we pack your valuables securely. You know, Sunset Meadows is very safe. But still, can't be too careful. He was holding my engagement ring. The one Richard had saved for 6 months to buy. The one I'd stopped wearing after arthritis made it too tight, but kept in my jewelry box as my most precious possession. I'll take care of this, I said, holding out my hand. David hesitated, just for a moment, then handed it over. Of course. But I saw it. That flash of reluctance. That split-second calculation. How valuable is this? What could it be worth? My son was already dividing up my assets in his mind. And I wasn't even gone yet. Tyler arrived around noon, carrying pizza. Thought you guys might be hungry, he said cheerfully, but his eyes met mine with an understanding. I'm watching. We ate in the kitchen, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Monica dominated the conversation, talking about how wonderful Sunset Meadows was, how many activities they had, how I'd make so many new friends, and the best part, she said, biting into her pizza, is that you won't have to worry about anything anymore. No house maintenance, no bills, no stress. It's all taken care of. That sounds nice, I said mildly. Monica beamed. She thought I was finally coming around, but Tyler was watching his father, who was being unusually quiet. And later, Tyler told me what he overheard. Around p.m., Tyler went to the garage to get more boxes. David and Monica were in the driveway, thinking they were alone. Tyler's phone recording app activated was in his shirt pocket. Monica's voice, low and urgent. Did you find the deed? David, not yet. She must have it somewhere. Maybe in a safe deposit box. Monica, we need that deed, David. As soon as she signs the Sunset Meadows admission papers, she'll be declared legally incompetent to manage her own affairs. Then you can get power of attorney, access the deed, and transfer the house to us. But we have to move fast before she changes her mind. A pause. Then David, I know. It's just, I feel weird about this. Monica. Weird. David, we've been over this. Your mother is 72. She could live another 20 years. 20 years of this house sitting here, equity you could be using now. For us, for our future. And let's be honest, she's not going to last forever. This way, she's safe and cared for. And we get what's coming to us. David. But the estate sale money, Monica, goes into our account. I already set it up. She doesn't need to know the details. By the time she's settled at Sunset Meadows, it'll all be done. And once we have power of attorney, we can sell this house and she'll never even know. Tyler stood frozen in the garage, his heart pounding, the recording app capturing every word. His father and Monica weren't just putting me in a nursing home for my safety. They were staging a financial takeover. That night, Tyler came to my house alone. We sat in my living room, the same living room where I'd read him bedtime stories when he was little, and listened to the recording together. Monica's voice coming through Tyler's phone was cold, calculated, clinical. Equity you could be using now. She's not going to last forever. I felt sick, but I also felt vindicated. Richard had been right. Thad had been right. The trust had been necessary, Tyler said, his voice shaking with anger. We have to stop this. We have to tell Dad not yet, I said quietly. If we confront them now, they'll just deny it. Or they'll come up with some explanation. No, we need more evidence. We need to let them dig their own grave a little deeper. Tyler looked at me with new respect and a little fear. You're really going through with it? Going to Sunset Meadows? For a little while, I said. Just long enough to see what they do next. And Tyler, I need you to be my eyes and ears. Can you do that? He nodded. I'm not going back to college. I'm deferring this semester. I'm staying here, Tyler. Your education can wait, he said firmly. You're more important. And Gran, if they try anything while you're in there, anything at all, I'll get you out. I promise. The move happened the following Tuesday. David and Monica picked me up in David's Mercedes. In the trunk, 3 suitcases containing the few possessions Monica had deemed essential for my new life. As we drove away from my house, my home of 35 years, I looked back through the rear window. Tyler stood on the porch, his phone held up recording, making sure David and Monica saw him, reminding them that someone was watching. Sunset Meadows was exactly what Monica had described. A sprawling complex of low-rise buildings arranged around a central courtyard. All beige stucco and careful landscaping designed to hide the institutional nature of the place. The lobby was cheerful in that aggressive, desperate way that medical facilities often are. Bright colors, motivational posters every day is a gift. A fish tank, a grand piano that no one was playing. A woman in scrubs approached us, her smile professional and fixed. You must be Mrs. Chamberlain. I'm Brenda, the admission coordinator. Welcome to Sunset Meadows. You're going to love it here. Monica took over immediately, speaking to Brenda like I wasn't there. She's a little confused about the transition, but we explained everything. Where do we sign? Brenda led us to an office where a stack of papers waited. Admission agreements, medical releases, liability waivers. Monica tried to hand me a pen, but I set it down. I'd like to read these first, I said. Monica's smile tightened. Doris, they're just standard forms and I should understand what I'm signing, I said calmly. David shifted uncomfortably. Mom, we need to get this done. I have a client meeting at 4, then go, I said. I'll read these carefully and sign them later. With my own lawyer present, the room went silent. Monica stared at me. Your lawyer? I still have one, I said mildly. Mr. Sterling, he handled your father's estate, David. You remember him? David went pale. Sterling? But he must be 83, I said. And sharp as ever. I spoke to him yesterday. He's reviewing all the Sunset Meadows documents to make sure everything is proper. Monica stood up abruptly. Excuse us for a moment, Brenda. She practically dragged David out into the hallway. Through the glass window of the office, I could see them arguing. Monica's face was red, her hands gesturing sharply. David kept shaking his head, looking miserable. They came back 5 minutes later, both wearing forced smiles. Of course you should have your lawyer review everything, Monica said sweetly. That's very wise. Why don't we get you settled in your apartment, and you can sign the papers tomorrow after Mr. Sterling looks them over. That sounds perfect, I said. What they didn't know was that Thad had already reviewed the documents, and he'd found something very interesting hidden in the fine print. My apartment at Sunset Meadows was on the 2nd floor, a studio with a kitchenette, a bathroom with grab bars, and a window overlooking the parking lot. The walls were beige. The carpet was beige. The curtains were beige. It was like living inside a manila folder. Monica bustled around, unpacking my suitcases with manic efficiency. See? Isn't this nice? So cozy. And look, you've got a little TV right there. They have movie nights every Friday in the common room. David was silent, sitting on the edge of my new bed, staring at his hands. Mom, he said quietly, about the papers. You don't really need a lawyer to look at them. They're standard, I know, honey, I said, patting his arm. But it makes me feel better. Old habits. Your father always said to read before signing. His face crumpled for just a second. Guilt. Shame. But then Monica was there, her hand on his shoulder. And the moment passed. They left around p.m., promising to visit soon. I stood at my window and watched David's Mercedes pull out of the parking lot. Then I turned and looked at my new reality. A beige box. A bed that smelled of disinfectant. A bathroom with an emergency pull cord. I sat down on the bed and for the first time, let myself cry. But only for 5 minutes. Then I dried my eyes, pulled out my phone and called Thad. "I'm in," I said. "Now tell me about those documents." Thad's voice came through grave and serious. "Doris, buried in the admission agreement is a clause that gives Sunset Meadows the right to declare you legally incompetent if you show any signs of confusion or inability to care for yourself. And once they make that declaration, your next of kin David automatically gets medical power of attorney." So Monica was telling the truth. The moment I sign, David can take over. Exactly. And with medical power of attorney, he can access your financial records, claim you're unfit to manage your own affairs, and petition for full guardianship. At which point, he would control everything. Or so he thinks, but the trust is completely protected, Dad said. The house is already out of your name. It's been in the trust for 20 years. David can get all the power of attorney he wants, he'll never be able to touch it. But he doesn't know that. So when he tries, we'll have proof of his intentions. I finished. Documented. Legal. Irrefutable. Exactly. But Doris, you need to be careful. Don't sign anything. And document everything. Every conversation, every interaction. We need to build an airtight case. Over the next 3 weeks, I lived at Sunset Meadows and learned what it meant to be invisible. The staff was kind but overworked. They called me sweetie and dear even though I had 3 degrees and taught high school for 30 years. They spoke loudly and slowly, as if age had made me deaf and stupid. The other residents fell into 2 categories: those who had given up sitting in the common room, staring at nothing, and those who raged against the dying of the light, complaining constantly about the food, the temperature, the indignity of being warehoused. I fell into neither category. I watched. I listened. I documented. My first night there was the hardest. I lay in that narrow bed, staring at the beige ceiling, listening to the sounds of the facility. Someone crying down the hall. The squeak of a medication cart. A TV playing too loud in the common room. I pulled out my phone and called Tyler. "Hey, Gran." He answered immediately, his voice tight with worry. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay." I lied. It's strange being here. I can come get you right now. We don't have to do this, yes? We do, I said firmly. We need to see what they're really planning. How far they'll go. Tyler was quiet for a moment. I went by the house today. Dad and Monica were there with the estate sale people, going through everything. Monica was. She was laughing, Gran, making jokes about your stuff like it was all trash. I closed my eyes. Did you record it? Every word. Good boy. Keep watching them. And Tyler? Don't let your father know you're suspicious. Act normal. Like you think this is all for the best. I don't know if I can pretend you can. You're stronger than you know. The next morning, I met some of the other residents. There was Mrs. Patterson in the room next door, 85 years old. Her family never visited. There was Mr. Chen across the hall, a retired surgeon whose daughter put him here after his wife died. And there was Dorothy, 78, sharp as a tack, who'd been declared incompetent by her son so he could sell her antique collection. They do it all the time, Dorothy told me over lunch in the dining hall. The families. They say it's for our own good, but really it's about money. Always money. Did you fight back? I asked. Dorothy's eyes welled with tears. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. He'd gotten power of attorney. Sold everything. Now I sit here with $200 a month allowance from my own money. I reached across and squeezed her hand. I'm fighting back. Good, she whispered. Fight for all of us. And I waited for David and Monica to make their move. Tyler visited every day. He brought me books, fresh fruit, news from the outside world, and information. On day 3, he told me about Monica's meeting with their lawyer. I followed her downtown, Tyler said, sitting in my room, his phone recording app running. She met with some fancy attorney in a glass tower. I couldn't get inside, but I waited in the lobby. When she came out, she was on the phone with Dad. He played me the recording, Monica's voice echoing in the marble lobby. confirmed everything. Once we get the incompetency declaration, you'll have full authority. The lawyer said we can sell the house immediately, claim we need the money for her care. She'll never even know it's gone. David's voice tinny through the phone. What if she asks about it? Monica, laughing. David, she'll be declared mentally unfit. Anything she says can be dismissed as confusion. That's the whole point. I listened to that recording 3 times, and each time it felt like another piece of my heart breaking. But I couldn't stop now. I needed more evidence, more proof of their intentions. On day 7, David visited. Alone, he knocked on my door around p.m., looking haggard. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loose. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Hi, Mom," he said, and his voice cracked. "David," I said, gesturing to the chair. "Sit down. You look terrible." He sat, put his head in his hands. "I can't do this anymore." My heart leaped. Was he having second thoughts? "Can't do what, honey?" "This, putting you in here, selling your stuff. Monica says it's the right thing, that we're protecting you, but..." "Mom, you seem fine. You don't seem confused at all." "I'm not confused," I said gently. "I never was." David looked up at me, his eyes red. "Then why did you agree to come here?" I almost told him then, almost revealed everything. But something held me back. Some instinct that said, not yet. "He's not ready. He's still torn, because you asked me to." I said instead, "Because I trust you to want what's best for me." The guilt on his face was crushing. He stood up abruptly. "I have to go. I have a meeting." After he left, I sat there for a long time, wondering if I'd made the right choice. Wondering if David could still be saved from Monica's influence. But then Tyler came by that evening with a new recording, and I knew David had made his choice. The estate sale happened yesterday, Tyler told me on day 10, his voice tight with anger. He sat on the edge of my bed, his phone clutched in his hand. "Gran, I went there. I had to see it with my own eyes." "Tell me," I said quietly. "Strangers were walking through your house, picking through your life like it was a garage sale. Your dining table, the one Grandpa made with his own hands, someone bought it for $200. Your wedding china, the set you told me had been in the family for 3 generations, gone for $150. I felt tears prick my eyes but held them back. "And my books?" Tyler's voice broke. "Monica priced them at 50 cents each. Your first edition Toni Morrison, your signed Maya Angelou, all of them. Some guy showed up with boxes and bought the entire collection for $80. $80, Gran, for 50 years of your life." I closed my eyes. Those books had been more than possessions. They were memories. The Morrison I'd bought the year I started teaching. The Angelou I'd gotten signed at a reading in 1983. The Baldwin that had belonged to Richard's mother. "Did you record it?" I asked. "Every minute." Monica was walking around with a clipboard, telling people your stuff was estate quality but pricing everything dirt cheap. She wanted it gone fast. "And Dad," Tyler's voice hardened. "Dad stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, watching people cart away your life, and he didn't say a word." "How much did they make?" The estate company said about $35,000 total. But here's the thing, I talked to the estate sale coordinator after everyone left. She said Monica insisted the check be made out directly to David Chamberlain, not to you. She told them David was managing your finances now. Theft. Plain and simple. They weren't even hiding it anymore. "And the house?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Tyler pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. A real estate sign in my front yard. "For sale, Chamberlain Properties. David's own company. He listed it this morning," Tyler said. $695,000. Monica already scheduled an open house for this weekend. She told the realtor you've agreed to sell because you need the money for long-term care. But I never signed anything. "I know." That's what I said to Dad when I confronted him this afternoon. I sat up straighter. "You confronted him?" "I had to. I couldn't just stand by and watch anymore. I went to his office, walked right in, and asked him how he could sell your house without your permission." "What did he say?" Tyler's jaw clenched. "He said, and I recorded this, Gren, he said, she signed a limited power of attorney form at Sunset Meadows. She just doesn't remember. The staff witnessed it." My blood went cold. "I never signed anything." "I know, Gran. Which means either he forged your signature, or he's planning to, or he's paying someone at Sunset Meadows to lie about it. And that's when I realized how deep this went. This wasn't just David and Monica being greedy. They had a plan, a system, and they were betting that I was too old, too confused, too powerless to fight back. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about erasing me, making me disappear, taking everything I was and everything I had, until there was nothing left but a confused old woman in a beige room who couldn't even remember signing her life away. On day 15, Monica visited. Alone, she arrived at p.m., dressed in a crisp business suit, carrying a leather folder and wearing that smile that never reached her eyes. She'd clearly come straight from work or wanted me to think she had Doris. She said, sitting down in my room's single chair and crossing her legs precisely. "We need to talk about your finances. I've done a comprehensive analysis of your situation, and I'm afraid the numbers are concerning." "Are they?" I said mildly, my phone in my pocket, recording app activated. "Very concerning," she said, opening the folder with practiced efficiency. She pulled out a spreadsheet. She'd actually made a spreadsheet analyzing my financial ruin. Sunset Meadows costs $6,500 a month. That's $78,000 a year. Your Social Security and pension only cover about $3,000 monthly. That leaves a $3,500 shortfall every single month. She slid the spreadsheet across the bed toward me, her perfectly manicured finger tapping numbers. "That's $42,000 a year you're bleeding from savings. At this rate, you'll be completely broke in 5 years. And then what, Doris? You'll be indigent. They'll move you to the Medicaid wing. Shared rooms, less care, lower quality of life." "I have savings," I said calmly. Monica laughed, not her fake social laugh, but something harder, sharper. "You have $180,000 in savings, Doris." I checked. "That sounds like a lot, but it's not. Not when you're burning through $42,000 a year. You do the math." She leaned forward, her voice taking on that tone people use when explaining simple things to children. "The solution is obvious. The house. It's sitting there empty, accumulating property taxes, insurance, maintenance costs. You're bleeding money on both ends paying for this place while that house drains resources." "The house is my home," I said quietly. "The house was your home," Monica corrected, and there was steel in her voice now. "Now it's just real estate. Real estate in a hot market. David's already had 3 serious inquiries. We could close a deal by next month." "We?" I asked. "Or you and David?" Monica's smile tightened. "David and I are your family, Doris. We're trying to help you. If we sell the house and current comps suggest we could get $700,000, maybe even 750, we could set you up for the rest of your life." "And where would that money go?" "Into a managed investment account. David and I would oversee it, of course. Make sure it's properly invested. Ensure you're getting good returns. We'd pay your Sunset Meadows bills directly from the account. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing. No stress, no bills, no responsibilities." Doesn't that sound nice? The way she said it, no responsibilities, like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with crayons. "Oversee it," I repeated. "You mean control it?" Monica's eyes flashed. "Doris, I'm a corporate attorney. I manage multi-million-dollar accounts every day. I think I'm qualified to handle your finances." "I'm sure you are. And I'm sure there are management fees, investment fees, all very legal, all very proper. And at the end of the day, you and David would be making money off my money." Monica stood up abruptly, the folder snapping shut. "I'm trying to help you. If you're going to be paranoid and difficult, I'm not being difficult," I said, standing to face her. I was shorter than Monica, older, physically weaker, but I'd been teaching teenagers for 30 years. I knew how to hold my ground. "I'm being careful. That house was my husband's house. My house. And it will stay in my family." Monica's face went hard, the mask finally dropping completely. "You may not have a choice, Doris. If you're declared incompetent, which is looking increasingly likely given your paranoid delusions about David and me trying to steal from you, then David will have full legal authority to make all your financial decisions." There it was, the threat, naked and clear. "I'm not incompetent," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'm 72, not brain dead." And I have a very good lawyer who's reviewed every single document I've been asked to sign. Mr. Thaddeus Sterling. Perhaps you've heard of him? He's been practicing elder law for 50 years. Monica's face went pale. She knew that name. Every lawyer in the city knew that name. Thad Sterling had built his reputation destroying people who tried to defraud the elderly. So, I continued, if someone is planning to have me declared incompetent, they're going to have to do it in court in front of a judge with my lawyer present. And they better have more evidence than a daughter-in-law's spreadsheet and some lies about what I did or didn't sign. For a moment, pure hatred flickered across Monica's face. Then she forced a smile back on, though it looked more like a grimace. Of course. I didn't mean to upset you, Doris. We just want what's best. Think about what I said. Really think about it. She walked to the door, then paused and turned back. You know, Doris, stubbornness is often one of the first signs of cognitive decline. Maybe you should consider that. And she left. I sat down, shaking, and pulled up my phone. I'd recorded everything. But Monica's parting shot echoed in my mind. Stubbornness is often one of the first signs of cognitive decline. She wasn't just threatening me anymore. She was building a narrative, planting seeds, making sure that when they moved to declare me incompetent, they'd have a story ready. That night, Tyler burst into my room at p.m., breathless, his face flushed with anger and something else, fear. Gran, he said, locking the door behind him and pulling out his phone. You need to hear this. Right now, he'd been at David and Monica's house for dinner. Monica had insisted family dinner. Tyler, your father misses you. Tyler had gone, suspicions high, phone recording in his shirt pocket. They thought I was in the bathroom, Tyler said, his hands shaking as he set up the recording. But I was standing right outside the kitchen. They had no idea. He played it. Monica's voice, sharp and cold. Stubborn old woman is going to ruin everything, David. Do you understand that? We're so close. The house could sell in a week. I already have a buyer ready to make a cash offer. $725,000. That's more than we expected. But we need her signature, and she's refusing to cooperate. David's voice, weak, defeated. She won't sell. She made that clear. And I can't force her if she's declared competent. Monica, interrupting. Then we make sure she's not declared competent. Jesus, David, how many times do I have to explain this? You need to talk to Brenda at Sunset Meadows. Tell her your mother's been confused, forgetful, wandering. Tell her you've seen signs of dementia. David, but she hasn't, Monica. It doesn't matter what she's actually doing. It matters what the medical records say. You tell Brenda. Brenda does a cognitive evaluation. Those tests are designed to fail people, David. They ask trick questions, time pressures, memory tests that would trip up anyone under stress. Once she fails, and she will fail if Brenda administers it properly, you get automatic power of attorney. Medical and financial. A pause. The sound of dishes clinking. Then David, so quiet Tyler said he almost didn't catch it. That's fraud, Monica. Monica's laugh was cold, brittle. It's not fraud. It's elder care. We're protecting her from making bad financial decisions that could leave her destitute. We're being responsible children and protecting our future. Do you want to wait another 20 years for that inheritance? Do you want to keep watching that house, our house, David? Let's be honest, sit there while your mother plays stubborn? David, it's her house, Monica. It's equity. $725,000 of equity that we could be using right now. For our future. For the life we deserve. Don't you want that vacation home in Hilton Head we looked at? Don't you want to expand your business? Or are you content to play dutiful son while she hoards assets she doesn't even use? Another long pause. Tyler said this was the moment that broke his heart. Because his father's next words were, okay, I'll talk to Brenda tomorrow morning. First thing. Monica. Good. And David? Once you have power of attorney, we move fast. Sell the house. Transfer the funds before she can contest anything. By the time she realizes what's happened, if she even has the mental capacity to realize, it'll be done. Legal. Irreversible. Tyler and I sat in my beige room. The recording ended, and I watched my grandson cry. Not gentle tears, but deep wrenching sobs. Because he'd just heard his father agree to destroy his own mother. For money. For a vacation home. For a woman who saw people as assets to be liquidated. That's it, Tyler said, wiping his eyes roughly. I'm getting you out of here. Tonight. Right now. We'll go to the police. We'll show them the recordings. No, I said, and my voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. Not yet, Gran. They're planning to have you declared incompetent. They're going to steal everything. Tyler, listen to me. I took his hands in mine. If we go to the police now, it's your word against theirs. They'll say you misunderstood, that the recording is out of context. They'll hire expensive lawyers who'll drag this out for years. And meanwhile, they'll do everything they can to isolate me, control me, make me look incompetent. Then what do we do? I thought for a long moment, looking at this boy, this man who loved me enough to stand against his own father. And I made a decision. We let them think they're winning, I said. We let David talk to Brenda. We let them schedule the evaluation. And when they think they've won, when they're absolutely certain I'm helpless, that's when we strike. Tyler stared at me. You want to let them think they've succeeded? I want them to commit fully, I said. Right now, they could still backtrack, claim they were just exploring options. But if we let them actually go through with it, forge documents, file false medical reports, try to sell the house, then we have them. Completely, irrefutably. That's risky ground, I know. But Tyler, I've been preparing for this for 20 years. The house isn't mine to lose. It's in a trust. They can get all the power of attorney forms they want, it won't matter. And when they try to sell it, when they realize they can't, when everything comes crashing down, that's when we show the judge every recording, every lie, every manipulation. Tyler was quiet for a long time. Then, you're terrifying, Gran. You know that? I smiled grimly. I taught high school for 30 years. You learn to play the long game. I pulled out my phone and called Thad. It was late after 10 p.m., but he answered on the second ring. Doris, his voice came through, alert despite the hour. What's happened? They're moving to have me declared incompetent, I said. David's meeting with the Sunset Meadows coordinator tomorrow to arrange a rigged cognitive evaluation. A pause. I could hear Thad breathing, thinking, do you have evidence? Tyler recorded them planning it. Every word. Good. Very good. All right, Doris. Here's what we're going to do. Let them schedule the evaluation. When they do, I want you to ace it. I mean perfect score. Show them you're not confused, not forgetful, not anything they're claiming. Won't that ruin the plan? No, because when you ace it, David will panic. He'll try to force the issue. Maybe forge documents. Maybe bribe Brenda to change the results. That's when we have him. I'll file for an emergency hearing the moment he makes his move. Can you hold on a few more days? I've held on this long, I said. That's my girl. And Doris? Start packing. Quietly. Because the moment we go to court, you're coming home. The next 3 days were agony. Waiting. Watching. Knowing David was meeting with Brenda. Spinning his lies. Setting his trap. Tyler stayed close. Visiting twice a day. Bringing me updates. Dad met with Brenda for an hour this morning. He reported on Wednesday. I saw him in the parking lot. He looked nervous. On Thursday, Monica called. She asked me to come to dinner this weekend. She was being really nice. Too nice. I think they want me on their side when they move against you. Friday afternoon, Brenda knocked on my door. She looked uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes. Mrs. Chamberlain, I need to do a cognitive assessment. Just routine. To make sure you're settling in okay and that this environment is appropriate for your care level. Of course, I said pleasantly. I understand. She sat down with her clipboard and began the test. The Montreal Cognitive Assessment. I recognized it immediately. I'd watched Richard take the same test when his doctors were checking for dementia after his cancer diagnosis. Simple questions first. What year is it? What month? What day of the week? 2025. March. Friday. I answered clearly. Who is the president? I told her. I'm going to give you 3 words to remember. I'll ask you to repeat them in a few minutes. The words are face, velvet, church. Face, velvet, church. I repeated. She showed me a picture of a lion. What animal is this? A lion, and this. A rhinoceros, a rhinoceros. Count backward from 100 by 7s. 100, 93, 86, 79, 72, 65. I said without hesitation. Brenda's frown deepened with each correct answer. She moved to the harder questions. Repeat a series of numbers. Draw a cube. Identify the date using only clues. I got every single one right. Finally, she asked, remember those 3 words I gave you earlier? Can you tell me what they were? Face velvet church, I said clearly. Brenda set down her clipboard, her expression conflicted. Mrs. Chamberlain, you scored 30 out of 30. That's a perfect score. Is that bad? I asked innocently. No, it's excellent. It shows you have no cognitive impairment whatsoever. She hesitated. Your son David, he said you'd been having some confusion, memory problems, but I don't see any evidence of that. Perhaps he was mistaken, I said mildly. Or perhaps he was hoping for a different result. Brenda looked at me for a long moment. Then, very quietly, Mrs. Chamberlain, if you ever need help, if you feel you're being pressured by family, we have resources, social workers, legal advocates. I reached out and squeezed her hand. Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate that. But I have help. I have a very good lawyer, and I have my grandson. She nodded, squeezed back, and left. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. David, Mom, he said, and his voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Brenda called me. She said you passed the cognitive test. With a perfect score, did I? I said, how nice. Mom, this is a problem. I mean, it's great. It's great that you're healthy. But Mom, we need to talk about the house. About your future. Can I come see you tomorrow? I'm afraid I'll be busy tomorrow, I said. I have an appointment. Downtown. An appointment? What appointment? With a judge, I said calmly. Family court. I'll see you there, David. And I hung up, because Thad had filed the emergency petition that morning. And in less than 24 hours, everything David and Monica had planned, every lie they'd told, every manipulation they'd attempted, all of it would be laid bare in front of a judge. Monday morning, Tyler picked me up at 7:30 a.m. I'd packed everything I owned at Sunset Meadows, which wasn't much anymore, into 2 small suitcases. Everything else Monica had stolen or sold. As we walked past the front desk, Brenda looked up. Our eyes met, and she gave me the smallest nod. A silent, good luck. Give them hell. We drove to the downtown courthouse through rush hour traffic. The city was waking up, people hurrying to work, coffee shops opening, the L trains rumbling overhead. Normal life, continuing as always, while my entire world was about to be decided in a courtroom. You ready for this, Gran? Tyler asked, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I've been ready for 20 years, I said. Thad met us on the courthouse steps. At 83, he moved slowly, but his eyes were sharp and his briefcase was thick with documents. Behind him stood a young woman in a gray suit as associate, he explained. Someone to help manage the evidence. They're already inside, Thad said. David, Monica, and their attorney Jeffrey Brennan from Hartwell and Associates. Expensive firm. They must be paying him $600 an hour. Will that be a problem? I asked. Thad smiled a predator's smile. Doris, I've been doing this since before Jeffrey Brennan was born. Money can buy a good lawyer, but it can't buy innocence. We walked into the courthouse, an imposing granite building where justice was supposed to happen. Through security, up the elevator to the 3rd floor, down a hallway that smelled of floor polish and anxiety. Family Court, Division 4. The hearing room was small, wood-paneled, formal. A judge's bench at the front, tables for lawyers, a witness stand, gallery seating for observers. The American flag in the corner, the Illinois state seal on the wall, and there at the defendant's table sat David and Monica with their attorney. David's face when he saw me walk in was something I'll never forget. First shock, eyes widening, mouth opening, then fear of visible paling, a hand gripping the table edge. And underneath it all, buried deep but still visible to someone who'd known him for 48 years, shame. Monica just looked furious. Her jaw tight, her eyes hard, her manicured hands clenched into fists on the table. Their attorney, Brennan, was smooth and polished, mid-40s, expensive suit, hair slicked back. He stood when we entered, sizing us up. I could see him calculating. Elderly woman, old lawyer, young grandson. He thought this would be easy. He was wrong. The judge entered a black woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Reeves. She sat down, reviewed her notes, then looked up at all of us. This is an emergency hearing regarding the estate of Doris Chamberlain. Mr. Sterling, you filed a petition to block your client's son from obtaining power of attorney. Explain. Thad stood. Your Honor, my client Mrs. Doris Chamberlain is a 72-year-old woman in full possession of her faculties. Her son David Chamberlain and his wife Monica have engaged in a systematic campaign to have her declared incompetent so they can seize control of her assets, specifically her house, which they plan to sell for personal profit. Monica's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, that's a serious accusation with no basis in fact. Mr. and Mrs. Chamberlain have only been trying to help an aging parent transition to appropriate care by lying to her, stealing from her, and plotting to have her declared incompetent through fraudulent means. Thad shot back. Your Honor, I have recordings. Multiple recordings of the defendants discussing their plan. Judge Reeves leaned forward. Recordings? Yes, Your Honor. Made by Mrs. Chamberlain's grandson Tyler, who became concerned about his father's behavior. With your permission, I'd like to enter them into evidence. Permission granted. And that's when we played them. All of them. Monica's voice discussing the equity we could be using now. David agreeing to talk to Brenda about a rigged cognitive evaluation. Monica demanding David forge a power of attorney. 30 minutes of damning, documented proof. The courtroom was silent except for those voices. Monica's face went from red to white. David looked like he might be sick. When the recordings ended, Judge Reeves turned to David. Mr. Chamberlain, do you deny those are your voices? David opened his mouth, closed it. No, Your Honor, but you weren't going to defraud your mother? Judge Reeves's voice was ice. You weren't going to forge legal documents? You weren't going to steal her house and her assets? Silence, Mr. Sterling, Judge Reeves said. You mentioned Mrs. Chamberlain's house. I assume there's a property deed in question? Actually, Your Honor, Thad said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. That's the interesting part. There is no deed. Not in Mrs. Chamberlain's name. The house has been held in an irrevocable trust since 1995. David's head snapped up. What? The house, Thad continued, producing documents from his briefcase, along with all of Mrs. Chamberlain's significant assets, were placed into the Doris Chamberlain Living Trust 20 years ago. Mrs. Chamberlain is the lifetime beneficiary, meaning she has the right to live in the house and use the assets for her lifetime. But she does not own them, the trust does. Which means Mr. Chamberlain could have obtained 1,000 power of attorney documents and it wouldn't have mattered. He never had the legal right to sell that house. Monica grabbed David's arm. You said you told me she owned the house outright. I thought she did. David said desperately. Judge Reeves held up a hand. Mr. Sterling, who is the remainder beneficiary of this trust? Who inherits when Mrs. Chamberlain passes? Originally, David Chamberlain was named as the primary beneficiary, Thad said. However, the trust included conditions. If David ever tried to coerce his mother into a care facility, steal from her, or manipulate her in any way, the trust would redirect to the alternate beneficiary. And who is that? Tyler Chamberlain, Thad said. David's son, Mrs. Chamberlain's grandson. All eyes turned to Tyler, who sat in the gallery, looking stunned. Based on the evidence presented today, Thad continued, David Chamberlain has violated every condition of the trust. He coerced his mother into a facility. He stole from her the estate sale proceeds. He plotted to have her declared incompetent. Therefore, under the terms of the trust, all assets, the house, the investments, everything now belonged to Tyler Chamberlain. David stood up, his chair scraping loudly. You can't do this. I'm her son. I have rights. You had rights, Judge Reeves said coldly. You forfeited them when you tried to defraud your mother. Mr. Sterling, I'm granting your petition. David Chamberlain is barred from any control over his mother's care or finances. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges related to elder abuse and fraud. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. The courtroom erupted. Monica was screaming at David, who sat with his head in his hands. Their lawyer was packing up his briefcase as fast as he could. clearly wanting to distance himself from this disaster, and I sat there, feeling oddly calm. It was over. After 30 days of fear and anger and pretending to be weak, it was over. Tyler came to me, tears streaming down his face. "Gran, I don't want the house. I don't want any of it. It's yours, Tyler," I said gently. "The trust says you own it, but I'm the lifetime beneficiary. That means I live there as long as I want. And when I'm gone, it'll be yours to do with as you wish. Your grandfather set it up this way to protect both of us. But Dad, your father made his choices," I said. "And now he has to live with the consequences." David approached us then, Monica having stormed out in fury. He looked broken, defeated, ashamed. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Monica, she convinced me that we were doing the right thing, that you'd be better off." "Stop," I said quietly. "David, Monica didn't make you do anything. You chose to believe that I was an obstacle instead of your mother. You chose to see my house as your inheritance instead of my home. You chose money over me. I know, but please, can we fix this? Can I make it up to you?" I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised, the man he'd become, and I felt a complicated tangle of emotions. Love, disappointment, anger, grief. "Maybe someday," I said finally, "but not today. Today, you need to go home and think about who you want to be. And I need to go home too, to my real home." That afternoon, Tyler drove me back to my house. My real house. The one I thought I'd lost but had protected all along. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw something that made me smile. On the front porch, someone had left a pot of yellow roses, my favorite flowers. There was a card. "Welcome home. I always knew you'd win. Thad." Tyler helped me carry my suitcases inside. The house was empty, of course. David and Monica had sold all my furniture, but it was still my house. Still home. "I'll help you get new furniture," Tyler said. "Whatever you want." "Actually," I said, looking around at the empty rooms, "why don't you move in with me? I have all this space, and you've deferred school anyway." Tyler grinned. Yeah, we'll buy new furniture together. Make this house feel like a home again." And Tyler, I took his hand. "Thank you. Thank you for believing me, for standing up for me, for being the man your grandfather would be proud of." He hugged me tight. "Always, Gran, always." Over the next few months, I rebuilt my life. Tyler and I furnished a house, carefully choosing pieces we both loved. I went back to Sunset Meadows not as a resident, but as a volunteer, reading to the residents who had no family to visit them. David called several times. I didn't answer at first, but eventually, I did. We had coffee once. Just the two of us. He was separated from Monica as she'd filed for divorce the day after the hearing, apparently deciding a disgraced real estate agent wasn't worth her time. "I lost everything," David told me, staring into his cup. "My marriage, my self-respect, my relationship with my son. And almost lost you." "Almost," I agreed, "but not completely." "David, the door isn't closed forever, but you need to do the work. Figure out who you are without Monica whispering in your ear. Figure out what kind of man you want to be." "What if I can't?" "Then that's your choice," I said. "But I believe you can. You're Richard's son, and deep down, I think you're still that boy who used to help me bake pies," he cried then. And I let him. Because sometimes people need to grieve the person they became before they can become who they're meant to be. The district attorney decided not to press criminal charges largely because I asked them not to. David had been punished enough. He'd lost his marriage, his inheritance, and nearly lost his son. That was consequence enough. As for me, I'm still here, still in my house. Tyler's living in the guest room, taking online classes and working part-time at a bookstore, my beloved books having inspired him to start reading again. I'm 73 now, and I wake up every morning in my own bed, in my own house, surrounded by love instead of betrayal. Richard was right to set up that trust. Thad was right to insist on conditions. Because in the end, the best way to protect yourself from the darkness in people's hearts isn't to pretend it doesn't exist, it's to prepare for it quietly, patiently, and thoroughly. And if there's one lesson I want to leave you with, it's this: Love your family, trust your family, but protect yourself anyway. Because people can change, circumstances can corrupt, and the best time to prepare for betrayal is before you need it. Welcome home indeed. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new live stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next live story. With love and respect.